I know I always say this, but we are back.
Is this live?
We are back. We are back. Yes.
Are we not doing what we had for dinner?
No, that's over.
That's over.
It wasn't what we had for dinner now. We've evolved. What's your favorite TV show?
Okay.
You guys go to sleep at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
So I don't have a favorite TV show. It's just dinner, sleep.
My mom puts me to bed at 7 p.m. What do you want me to do?
And I'm here talking about Four Nations, and you guys gave me 0.
I watched the first 2 periods with you.
I understand, but you missed.
I know. I missed
an
the most important
moment.
part. Was that a nice goal?
Marner?
No.
To Connor McDavid?
Yeah.
Connor McDavid, top shelf. And Matthews missed 3 glorious chances, and to me, that still shows that we can't get over the hump as Leaf fans. But anyways, I digress.
Big sports guy.
We are very excited to have you on. Reuven Gorsht, CEO at Deeded. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Super excited to be here. Big fan of the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Normally, we kind of fact check that and say, what was your favorite episode? But I don't want to put you on the spot, so we won't do that.
Appreciate it.
However, I want to start off, we always start off with a little bit of fun. So I want to talk about the first time that we actually met you, which was at, the first time I met you was in Niagara at the golf tournament.
Yep.
And you deeded my golf bag.
Yep.
And I didn't really notice. So what he does is he goes around and he actually puts the
tag.
The tag.
I have one on my golf bag
and you
too.
really, he asked your permission, but they're also playing a game, so you have to chip to try to get some stuff. I'm not a great golfer, so obviously I didn't win any prizes.
Are you looking for compliments here?
No, not at all, not at all.
Okay.
But the point is that a lot of people don't realize they've been deeded until you're on like 2 or 3, 4 holes later when you go get a club and you're like, oh, this is cool. Like I got tagged, right? So, anyways. You're always great at those events, and it's cool that you're there, and the community is incredible. The broker community, we're newer to it. You've been around, and we're gonna get to your story, but yeah, we got to meet you, and you said, oh, like Clear Trust, I've heard of you guys, and ever since then, and let's talk about how this came about, coming on the pod and wanting to do this. So you and Dan have been kind of connecting a little bit.
I put face cream on.
I can see that
before the episode,
and
it's driving me nuts right now. It's
like, it's too bad you got to work through it.
I know. Okay, we're gonna work through it. You're right. Thank you for that. I needed that.
Did you hear anything I said, or were you just thinking about the face cream?
No, we're going up against all odds. So we got first world problems.
Yeah,
we're gonna solve them today.
I don't know what to do right now.
I could tell as I was talking to you, I had to elongate my sentence because your eyes were all over the place, and I know when you're thinking of something else. So do you want to talk about how you and Reuven got together to bring him on the pod?
We were at the Home Trust tournament, right? It was the
golf tournament?
Truth
Classic.
Yeah, it was the Truth Classic, and Reuven got really upset that he hasn't been on the pod, and he yelled at me, and then now we're here.
But that was in August.
Yeah.
Or September.
Yeah.
We're in February.
You're a busy guy.
Yeah, I'm a busy guy. Okay, we got you on 6 months later.
Well,
it's all good.
It's almost like those popular delis. You got to take a number. You got to wait for your number to be served. So
that's me every Sunday at Fortino's. I got you.
Nonetheless, what's important, guys, is
that we're here.
We made it happen. We're here, right?
We're here.
So here we go.
We got to the destination. Let's talk about the journey.
Yeah, let's do it.
Great segue.
Sounds good.
So, I found it very cool that you got your MBA from Harvard. Walk me through a little bit of that experience. It's something that I've kind of dabbled thinking about getting my MBA, but walk us through that. How was that? When did you get it? And the challenges. I'm assuming you were working full time at the. Yeah. So walk us through that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So for me, it's always been a dream, right? So I always said like I'm going to get an MBA somewhere. But when I was growing up, I basically parents said, hey, go to school, get a job. So I was working even before I graduated my undergrad. So I said one day I'm going to go back. Ended up being almost like 15 years in, right? So I was working for a great company at the time, and to be honest, I just felt like I was missing something, right? So it wasn't so much to do like the MBA. I think part of what they do at like HBS is put together a very curated program with a group of like-minded people. And I don't know how they do it, if they have an algorithm or something, but when you have people from like different walks of life, so to give you, people from all over the world in terms of, nationalities, countries, but, you got folks that are, inheriting big family businesses, and you've got folks that are, just climbing the ladder. You've got folks that are entrepreneurs. And when you get that mixed together, I think in my group, we've had, doctors, real estate developers, entrepreneurs from all over the world. But what you find is it's not just the in class, the educational piece. Of course, it's very intense. You're doing case studies. You're sleeping like 2 hours, 2 hours a night. But couple big realizations. One is that a lot of times we judge success and we feel intimidated. Like, hey, look at this person. They're a billionaire. They're this, they're that. We're all human at the end of the day. And every one of us has the same or maybe a different magnitude of problems, right? Like that person that's about to inherit, the family empire feels a lot of pressure on their shoulders, just like we do to grow our business and keep, the people that and the families that rely on us being there for them successful, right? And continuing to grow. But other than that, it's like, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Great network. And for me, that was actually the inflection point, because at that time, I kind of grew up in the corporate world, climbed the ladder, got the title, had a team of 70 some odd folks reporting to me at the time. But coming out of that program and just having those realizations, like, I got to do something different. And I got to, and the only thing I found at the time is like, I call it burn the boats. So I, literally put in my resignation and off to the entrepreneurial journey. So that was the inflection point, I would say.
Burn the boats.
Burn the
I
boats.
never heard that before. That's the title of this episode. It was easy. So we will. We'll give you copyright.
There you go.
So was that before or after that you moved from director to global VP at, is it SAP or SAP? I don't know.
SAP, yeah. No, that was I still had the title and the team. I just took, I was lucky enough to get the time off to do what I wanted to do. But like, you go through, you go through a transformation, right? Like you disconnect from your daily role and you literally do stuff that makes you realize that, there are no limits, right? And because I think we all grow up, and every one of us grew up a little bit differently, but every one of us has limiting beliefs, right? Like, so when you say, look at so-and-so and they've been so successful, but we always come up with that excuse, like, oh, but they came from money, or they got lucky, or they had this. I think, going through a bit of a process, it lifts those limiting beliefs off of you. And it's like, wait, I could do anything. Right. And in fact, most of the people that go through the program, I always say, if you're a corporation, never pay for, someone's MBA, because odds are they're going to leave you within a couple of years.
Right.
And it's a good thing, right? Because I think we all, at the end of the day, let's kind of drop a truth bomb. Most people live in their comfort zone. That's right. Right. And I think 95% of people just, want to go to work, do their 9 to 5 or whatever. Unfortunately, the three of us and others we're different creatures. We love the journey, and whatever comes with it. Right. So, if we get punched in the face one day, all good, because the next day we get to get up again and try again. That's right. And that's what I discovered. I love the journey, no matter, how great it can be one day to have an achievement and to grow. And then the other side is like, you'll trip and fall, but you learn. And that's what I love doing.
So speaking of the journey, you went from director to global VP at a very big company, like SAP. Like I can't remember what arena they own, but they're really big in the States too, and I think globally as well, potentially. So how did you get into there, and how did you climb the ranks so quickly? Or maybe talk to us maybe about the challenges or whatnot. Like, walk us through that. That's a very cool jump, and you were there for quite a few years as well, right?
Yeah, I was there for just a little bit under 11 years. So, and I never thought, to be honest, like, when I joined the company, that I would be there for that long. Yeah. For me, and this goes back to this whole like journey. I've always been an entrepreneur. Like remember growing up, even as a kid, have like little businesses and sell stuff. And I had, back even before when I was in high school, had like a record label and all
nice.
that stuff,
Look at
right?
you.
So
you never signed any artists? You didn't know Dan was a rapper?
We had a couple. It wasn't rap, it was freestyle out of all, right? So we did a couple freestyle dance, and a couple things made it on the radio. But I was a kid, right? Didn't know anything at the time. Didn't really make anything out of it. But it's cool. Like there's still a couple.
Really cool. Still,
there's still a couple CDs floating around with my name on the credits. But
no way.
So again, I got down that path of going into the corporate world, climbing the ladder. But one thing I've always kept true to is I love learning and I love evolving. I can't stand still, right? Even to this day, if I'm not learning, like I'm just, I find things get dry pretty quickly and I get bored. So fortunately, I had managers and mentors within the company that supported that, right? So every time something new came up, I'd be tasked with like, hey, you know what? Go live like 3-4 years in the future and figure out what that means, right? So I remember this was, I think, 2010, iPad was coming out. And of course, everyone's like, whatever, it's another computer. And, we saw a little bit of a different potential. We said like this, this can change the world, how people interact with computers. I know at the time, my parents are now in their 70s and never touched a computer. And I remember getting them an iPad and a whole new world opened up, right? So I saw the potential and we're like, you know what, we got to get out there and develop some apps for this stuff, show, how businesses can use it. So I was lucky to have all that variety, right? And that just kept me going until, until I guess at some point it didn't, right? At some point I didn't have that level of support. So that's been my, I guess, claim to fame is just, whether if it's technology or any kind of change that's happening, and that's one constant. So I guess I'm a bit recession proof or whatever, is figure out what that means to people, right? And make some sense out of it. So that's
very cool. Yeah. And then you went, what is MoveSnap? But that was one of the ones I struggled with a little bit. So, and then it was acquired by RBC. So talk to me a little bit about MoveSnap and what it is and how the acquisition was.
Yeah. So we're going back to, I think it's 2015. I'm at SAP. I said, burn the boats, which means like, okay. And honestly, guys, like for me, burn the boats means like literally get into that mindset of not going back. Because I find a lot of people, I know you guys went from the bank world to the broker world. And I often talk to people that have gone through the same. And I sense there's a lot of hesitation, meaning like, I can always have my job back.
That's right.
And I think when you have that optionality in the back of your mind, it's an obstacle to your success because that there's option B. So I can fail in this world and I can still go back to if big company and if it doesn't work out where I get my paycheck or whatever. So I got into that mindset of like, you know what, yes, I can go back, but I don't want to go back. Right. So burn the boats and then start like looking for what do I want to do. I talked to a bunch of businesses to be like, join startups and stuff like that. Couldn't find anything that I was passionate about at the time. One thing that I was going through is I was moving homes and it was a total disaster from, the booking the moving truck. A couple months later, my wife calls me. She goes, "Hey, I've been pulled over today." And I'm like, "Okay. You didn't change the address on my driver's license." And I'm like, "Exactly. Oh, I didn't do it." Yeah. Well, I didn't know I was supposed to do it.
Right. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. That goes into it.
So from that experience, I was like, you know what? Like people need to know this stuff. So you need some sort of, app or a system or an assistant to help you. Because moving, I don't know if you guys know this, but moving is like the third worst experience next to like death and divorce. People hate it.
It absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's complicated. People have a hard time so I've partnered up with my CTO at the time, and I said let's try to build something that makes that process easier. What does that look like? So MoveSnap ended up being essentially an app, and you say, look, I'm moving from Vaughan to Mississauga, and it'll say, well, fantastic, Dan. Like you're with Power Stream, and then you're going to be with Mississauga Hydro, right? So it'll give you all the step-by-step guidance for everything you need to manage your move.
That's really cool.
And then we layered it with some sort of concierge service as well. So like we had people that, needed a new daycare for their kids, right? So they can call someone and someone would do all the legwork to, find the right school and all that stuff, right? Yeah.
I love it. And then it got acquired by RBC.
It did, yeah. So we grew it very quickly. I think once we kind of figured out what we were doing, the first year we're, lost in, just having a lot of conversations, how to make that process better. We ended up actually selling it as a subscription to realtors because realtors, want to add value. And a lot of times realtors would sign we get their client to sign an agreement to purchase or to sell. And then they disappear. They go off to the next transaction. Right. So our platform actually, was something that the realtor can then give to their client as a value add, right? Help them stand out and continue to look good, right? Justify, the commission and keep that relationship going. So once we kind of discovered that need, we ended up doing really well, and then at some point it was do we take it to the next level, or RBC at the time had a great platform and a great vision where they wanted to take their business beyond just the banking and the mortgage and all that stuff. So we ended up joining forces, grew the team, and we did take the business to another level. Unfortunately, it's no longer in operation at this time. But
that's too bad.
Yeah, but nonetheless, a lot of people still remember the brand and the legacy there. Right?
That's very cool. So how long did you guys own it before you sold it?
About almost 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Wow. And how many subscriptions did you build it to before RBC came in? Do you remember? Was it?
I don't remember exactly, but we had a good, we didn't, we measured the market share of we take how many real estate transactions we had in a given month and how many people have gone through our platform. And I think really at some point we had 35-40%.
Wow.
So it's pretty big.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That's
really cool. Okay. So then after that, that's when you decided to join Deeded? Is that how it kind of worked, or was there anything in between?
No, so I like I said, I spent some time at the bank at RBC, helping put together a management team, scale the business, make sure it's left in good hands, and then I bought the house that I'm in right now. And what happened was, my wife and I still remember we're in the driveway waiting for our lawyer to give us a call and say, hey, you know what, we got the keys. Right. I think everyone that's been through a purchase is super excited about that call in that moment. And our lawyer eventually called a little bit earlier, which I thought was a little bit awkward, but I got excited, and he kind of said, look, we're missing some document, and we're not going to be able to close. And I said, well, what do you mean you won't be able to close, right? We've got the moving trucks coming, we have people coming on Sunday, to wish us well, right?
Yeah.
And this wasn't any this lawyer's had our file for months, right? And so we ended up not closing, and we had a huge bridge loan because we had our other house and all that stuff, and ended up getting extorted by everybody. The movers wanted money because they needed the truck for the weekend and all that stuff. So, it got me thinking about and wanting to look into this closing process, right? Why does this happen, and how many people does it happen to? So I went on a little bit of an expedition with talking to, buyers and sellers and realtors and brokers. And what I heard was a recurring theme. First of all, this happens a lot, right? There's delays, there's unpredictability. And probably the biggest gap was that people didn't feel like they were in the loop, meaning, you're not communicated with, which is very contradictory, guys, when you think about we live in this Amazon, Uber, you order your food and every 14 seconds, driver picked it up, he's around the corner, it's coming at your door. So we're spoon fed this information for $20 lunch. That's right. Why do we not have something similar to,
for your largest transaction?
Exactly. And where we know, and you guys deal with it every day in your business, high anxiety, high emotions, people are in different, situations in their lives, right? So once we kind of figured out what it looks like, we started building it, and then very quickly realized that, changing the legal industry is not something that we're going to be able to do unless we actually do the work ourselves. This is not a software play. We sold, MoveSnap subscription to a realtor, and the realtor would then, use our system with our clients. We realized lawyers are not really up for the change. So why don't we just incorporate that as an overall platform? We get our own lawyers that are aligned with our own brand. We get folks that are all bought in to say, we don't want these experiences of someone, having to sleep at a hotel because their deal didn't close, or someone, incurring insane interests because their refinance was delayed and all that stuff. So So yeah, here we go. March of 2020, we launched March 2nd, I believe, of 2020. And, with a vision of, hey, we can digitize it. We can make this process better. Eventually it'll be virtual. Cause if you guys remember, like you still, before COVID, you ended up at a lawyer's office to sign, in wet ink and all that, and walk away with your, stacks of paper. And 2 weeks in, COVID hits, first lockdown. And, I guess we got lucky. I always tell people, like, trust me, we're not behind the pandemic, right? But where we got lucky is overnight things changed. Like the regulators, like law societies, and the banks, which, as you guys know, like the banks
they're
never
extremely
change.
tight.
Never change.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of put their hands up. It's like, you know what? It's COVID. We still got to do transactions. Let's make it happen. Yeah. And so we ended up growing very quickly from that point on.
That's awesome. And did you start off as CEO from the beginning there, or was there a growth? Yeah.
Yeah, I was one of the founder and co-founder.
That's awesome. And so, how has it evolved over the 4 years? Has your role remained the same? What's the growth like? Like when we started 2020, what was the staffing, and where is it at now? Do you want to walk us through like the evolution and growth over the 4 years?
For sure. I mean, so when we started, it was two of us in a little co-working space in Mississauga, literally sitting back to back in a room probably half this size, right? And again, COVID hits. I was out there with some of my contact. Deals started rolling in, and I think within our second month we had our first employee, and then second and third, and to be honest, it's a bit of a blur now.
Yeah.
But I think we've grown the team. We've opened up in Alberta. We've quickly moved to BC, and the team's grown, learned a ton, developed, a whole bunch of technology. But as you guys know, I always say to our team, we're just scratching the surface. Right. Like people always ask, like, okay, so are you done? Like, what do you mean done? We're never done. Right. So we're in that first inning. In terms of what it could be, and our overall vision is like we really want to change the industry. We want every home buyer, everyone that gets a mortgage. Ultimately, there's a stat out there. I think the U.S. company Zillow did a survey a couple of years ago, and it says I think about 60% of home buyers would have a nervous breakdown and cry at some point, right? And like you guys have probably seen that with clients. I know my wife. Yeah. My wife was bawling as well when our house didn't. It's emotional, right? And as humans, home is home, right? You wake up at night, you can blindfold yourself, you're half asleep, and you can walk downstairs, get a glass of water, where the forks are and all that, And when you feel out of your element, like it's a big shakeup, right? Yeah. So when your home doesn't close, when things don't happen according to plan, people get stressed, right? So ultimately, what we want is, we this sounds a bit cliche. We want to turn that last mile of the transaction. We call it turn the last mile into lasting smiles. Right. And at the end of the day, what it does is it makes sure that people have a really great experience. Right? Period. End of story. And that's what they're going to remember at the end of the day.
And so what, outside of the constant updates and the communication and it being all in front of the clients, is that how you've been avoiding those situations like you're talking about? Is that the deeded way in just keeping them up to date along the whole journey so that you're avoiding any last minute or you're not closing today? Is that really the big difference?
Yeah, I love, Paul, that you said the deeded way, because that's what we call it internally, right? So as you know, like when your entire company and culture subscribes to one thing, we care. Like we truly, like when somebody calls us with a situation to say, and I know we see all sorts of situations in this market. Some people don't have enough money to put food on the table on Friday if their refi didn't close on Thursday night. And honest situation.
Yeah, of
right?
course, yeah.
And for us, we beside all the technology and all the updates, that's all great. That's all gravy. That's how we do things. Yeah. But why we do things is for those very situations, right? Be it, first time buyers, you're super excited to get into that home. Yeah. And, you know, and the last thing you want to do is get that call to say, oh, sorry, it's not going to happen for another couple of days. Something happened, you know, the seller left their garbage behind or whatever. Those are the moments that you know, unfortunately people remember. Yeah. Like I remember, you know, my last transaction that I just told you guys about, like my realtor was wonderful. My mortgage broker was, you know, top shelf. Everybody did their job. But all I remember is like looking at my wife and like, what are we going to do? Like, do we go to a hotel? We have all our stuff in a truck, and it's a shitty situation to be in. So that's what we, you know, when you say the deeded way, that's what we take to heart to make sure it never happens. And, you know, part of it is technology, but a big part of it is culture, right? To understand that, hey, you know, we're all in the business and we do this every day, right? So for you or Dan or me to take a call from a client to say, look, I'm in this situation and that, you're sensitized to it, right? You've seen it all, probably, right?
For sure, yeah.
But for them, it's a special situation. They're stressed, and sometimes they just need someone to, you know, that listen to them. Sometimes they need to, you know, someone to say, hey, you know what? I got you. Don't worry. At the end of the day, it's going to be a process. But we'll sort it out because we're the experts, right? And we do this every day. So that's what we take to heart, and that's why we've been so successful.
That's amazing. So most of your deals that are being referred, or most of your clients, is it through brokerages, banks, realtors, all of the above? Like, where do you guys get most of your business from right now, or referrals? Sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. So we partner with brokers, we partner with realtors. And again, what we found through the years is we're not a fit for everyone. I think a lot of folks kind of go out to the market and, you know, pound your chest and say, hey, we're the best, or we're number one, and all that sort of stuff. We're very, very good at forging these deep partnerships where we're really more than just a referral. We're an extension of your brand. So that's how we look at it, right? Like everybody works hard to develop their reputation and brand and get good reviews. And when we know what it takes to acquire a customer, like sometimes I know you guys would, you know, takes years of a relationship to get someone to trust you and transact. Yeah. So there's a lot at stake, right? There's a lot at stake. And ultimately being that extension, like we take that seriously, right?
Yeah. That's incredible. Danny.
Hey guys.
Been quiet.
I've just been doing a lot of listening, you know, taking it all in. Yeah. You've been doing great, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You as well.
So it's good to be back.
A couple of things that stand out to me. Number one, I live my life without boundaries. And I think that everybody puts these fake boundaries around themselves that don't exist, that just limits them from being able to achieve greatness effectively. So I really appreciate you saying that, and I trust that you kind of let that bleed and cascade through to your entire team, which is why you guys have found a ton of success. I have a couple questions. I'm not really sure how Deeded works, and I'd love for the audience to hear how it works and kind of what is your competitive advantage. And given you know, your experience as an entrepreneur, and Paul's going to yell at me because I'm firing off 19 questions at you, which is not allowed, but I'm just going to get it off, is, you know, when you're scaling, what are some things you found that have really helped you scale? So if you're speaking to a mortgage broker, a realtor, an entrepreneur, scalability, it's got the same attributes, it's just in a different shell, right? So what are some things that have really helped you scale, and what kind of advice would you give to people that are looking to scale their business up?
Yeah, absolutely. So great questions, Dan. So first, you know, how Deeded works. I mean, I want to try to simplify it. So at the end of the day, you know, if you're a mortgage broker and you're listening, or you're a realtor and you want your clients to have a great experience, we're an alternative to basically, you know, maybe the current lawyer that you're using. Maybe, you know, we can be your number two or backup, or we'd love to be your number one option, right? So ultimately, you reach a certain milestone in a transaction where, you know, you need to close. And I think most people know there's, you know, a lot of steps that go into kind of finalizing the deal, producing the documents, the funding, and all that other fun stuff that goes into a transaction. So through our platform, we receive the call it the referral or the handoff. So you would basically, you know, submit your client's information. Typically within 30 minutes, we would reach out say, hey, we got your number from Dan or Paul, and we're here to help you with the next stages, handhold them through the next steps, which is like sharing a little bit of information, making sure we have everything we need, ID, documents, and stuff like that. All the while, you guys and your clients are getting a play-by-play status of where we're at. So there's never that ambiguity. I know a lot of folks in the industry say, well, no, I refer a lawyer. I give my client 3 phone numbers, and they spend probably, all week calling and trying to shop around and compare apples to oranges. Unfortunately, that's the way our industry works, right? But that's a cumbersome process, or even so much so as like doing an email intro. That email can end up in a junk mailbox, and then it comes 2 days from closing, and your client, bet anything that your client probably called you at some point and said, what's going on? I haven't heard from the lawyer, right? And now we're all scrambling to try to get the deal saved and funded, and no one's having a good time. So our system allows, a couple things. One is really seamless handoff. Number 2 is full transparency in terms of where we are, with time stamping and full accountability. And when I say accountability, and this is another, when I say an extension of your brand, we mean it. So what happens, unfortunately, and there may be folks that are not insiders in the industry, but what we found happens is when things don't go according to plan, everybody throws each other under the bus. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's I'll use the train wreck metaphor, right. And that all happens in front of a customer. Right. And sorry to use the language, but a customer just doesn't give a shit. They just want an outcome. Right. So they don't care to say, oh, it was the lender that dropped the ball. It was the lawyer. It was the appraiser. Like, unfortunately, we have a lot of different parties involved. You guys know it. You guys, your job is to orchestrate all that. But from a client perspective, I couldn't care less. I just want the job to be done. So if I trusted you with my mortgage or my home purchase, I just wanted to get done. So when you ask me how we work, that's one of the biggest things is when you have everything time stamped and you have accountability, there is no throwing each other under the bus. There's holding each other to a higher standard, right? Which means, hey, you know what? You've sent us information on that date. Well, it's in our system and timestamp. Nobody can turn around and say, no, you haven't sent it. Right? Client sees it all goes play by play. And then ultimately, the way we achieve a great result is everybody's accountable. Everybody's got a uniform front in front of a client. And we all know, I think a lot of clients don't appreciate how much you guys do behind the scenes, right? All they know is they got an outcome. They don't know that, you've just submitted their file to, 17 lenders and had, tough conversations, right? It's your job, right? And same on our side. Like, there's 100 some odd steps. And if something goes missing, we got to take accountability for it. So ultimately, goes through the process. You guys get visibility. Client gets visibility. Everybody feels that they're in control and they're in the know. And we work towards that closing where we say, hey, congratulations. Everything's closed. Here's your money. Here are your keys. And hopefully leave us a 5-star review so we can continue to grow our business.
It's brilliant.
And then I have your scaling question.
That's what I was going to bring up. You remember it?
I didn't forget.
No, you didn't. And then there's a third one after that, but
Yeah. So
is it? Do I have a third one?
Yeah.
What's the third one?
You said scaling, and then it'll come to me. There was a last piece after scaling that I'm trying to remember, but you gave him 3 because I remember. Yeah, I was going to call it. It's okay. Let's start with scaling.
So so the question was, how do you scale, or how do you think about scaling?
What do you, given that you've worked in a company scaled, right? Yeah. 70 reporting staff, worked on. I love when you said, here's a project, go live 4 or 5 years in the future. I love that.
Yeah.
So you have that experience, right? Then you have your MBA experience, right? Understanding of how to manage yourself in order to achieve a certain result. And then you have your entrepreneurial scaling through Move Snap and now Deeded.
Yep.
So you have a ton of experience of scaling businesses. And I think that a lot of the skills are transferable to many different businesses.
Yep.
So with your experience, what are some things that have helped you scale? And what are some things that you thought were going to help you but didn't in fact help you scale?
That's going to have to be another episode altogether. I think a couple things. One that comes to mind is just making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people, right? Because our our team is everything, and that alignment to values and culture is everything. Like, and again, like I said, just like we're not for everyone as a client, we're not for everyone as an employer either, right? So a big part of it is recognizing that talent, recognizing that even before you scale, Dan, like there comes that point that everybody believes in the same thing. Right. Because if you don't believe in, providing great experience, you're not going to pick up that phone at 9 p.m. when that stressed client is calling. And our team does, right? I'm not saying it as a bragging point. I'm saying that they care enough to do that when they don't have to, right? So obviously going through that process and making sure that you got the right people, we call it right butts in the right seats, right? And that also means that some people are amazing people, but they're not in the right role. So set them up for success. And then, the other side of it is, learn. And I was on a panel earlier this week, and someone said, asked me what's the biggest mistake you've ever made? And I said, well, we don't have like 2 weeks to sit here to tell you every mistake I've ever made. I've made a ton of mistakes. I've probably made more mistakes than I've made good decisions. But one thing I'm very conscious of is to learn from every mistake and try to keep them, try to keep experimenting and pushing, and something didn't work. Here's the next thing. Right. So I think, unfortunately, there's no textbook for scaling. We'd like to think that there is, but there isn't. And scaling is tough. Your company looks very different when you're at 5 people versus 45, right? Mm-hmm. Communication breaks down, policies, like you get all this grown up stuff, right? Yeah. And the last thing I want to do is like replicate a big corporation with, I think we've all kind of gone down the way of having way too much rigor, policy and all that stuff. Coming from a bank, for example, as the biggest example, you have, it almost feels like you've been unshackled, right? When you come into this world. So it's a lot of those things, but I wish I had a playbook. I'd sell it.
The last one was advice. That was your last question. You layered on advice on, not maybe necessarily on scaling, but you said advice to realtors or brokers.
What's your advice to realtors or brokers?
Do you not remember that?
I do.
Okay, good.
Advice
it came to me. I had to write it down.
In which way?
I think the way I was portraying the question is, again, you have so much experience. You've seen markets go up, down, sideways, and in circles. Yeah. We're in a very interesting time right now, independent of trying to offer, a great experience to the folks that want to use Deeded for their home closing process. What's your advice to people that are building a business right now?
I think it's coming to the realization that you gotta do the work. I think your sign outside this door says hustle, right? And some people buy into hustle culture, some people don't, and that's absolutely fine. But it doesn't change the fact that yes, you've entered the business. Yes, you've got your license. Yet you might have 10 or 15 years experience. But I think times like this is it's your opportunity to shine. And I always say, look, talk to a lot of mortgage brokers who are saying, hey, it's slow. My phone's not ringing. And I'm saying, well, what are you doing to make it ring, right? Because if you think about it, so we went through COVID, right? COVID, the news headlines were, pandemic, we're gonna die, so and so, and what do people need at the time? They needed to reach out to like a doctor, nurse, friend to validate, right? So I remember I got a couple of friends, and I was on the phone intensely, like, what's going on? Tell me the truth. I need some advice, right? And now, we're a few years later, and we're in a crisis with inflation and interest rates or whatever. What's the number one search term like in the last few months in Google? It's mortgage. Right. So if you're in the mortgage industry or if you're in real estate, what do you think people need right now? They need to talk to you. Right. So the last thing you could be doing is kind of lurking in the shadows, waiting for your phone to ring. You need to get out there. And honestly, guys, I know it's long tail. Some of it may not result in a transaction in a week or tomorrow or in a year. And sometimes we just want to make the right choice and say, hey, you know what? Stick with your bank, right? But now's a good time to build those relationships, plant those seeds, have those partnerships, but you got to get, you got to get out there and do the work. Like I remember one of my biggest shock factors coming out of, corporate, and I don't know, I wonder if you guys had the same experience, right? So you're working in this corporate career, and I used to wake up like Dan at like 5 a.m. because I'd have people like in Asia or whatever, and it would be 5 p.m. for them. So every time I wake up, there's 100 emails in my inbox, right? And it felt good because I felt needed, right? I didn't need to do anything. I just responded to those emails and fires and all that. And by 8 a.m., I'd, take my kids to school, and here we go again. Right. But when I started MoveSnap, when I kind of, quit my job, day one, I'm looking at my phone, there's 0 in there. Right. And I kept refreshing. I'm like, is this damn thing broken? No one's emailing me. I'm going nuts, right? And if you're like a high intensity person like I am, I don't know what I'm going to do. What do I do with myself, right? Yeah. And I realized that nothing happens until you make it happen, right? So if I'm not working this week, if I'm, taking a week off and not making my calls and not having my emails or not sending emails, not reaching out, next week my calendar is going to be empty and I'm going to have no emails, right? So I think, longest answer ever to my word of advice is just make stuff happen. Like now's the time. It might not pay off right away, but I'm seeing a lot of people just, almost kind of take that victim mentality. Like life's happening to me. The market's bad. The tariffs are coming in. There's 6 feet of snow outside. Well, it's all wonderful, but guys, we can't control that stuff.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. Yeah, you tied a bow perfectly. You opened up with the excuses. That guy's lucky. Came from money to this, and a big theme this month with the coaching of our agents has been hunter versus scavenger, and that's what came to my mind when you said go out there, make things happen, which is the hunter versus scavenger where you're picking up scraps, right? And I think by nature, as you build a book or as you start doing things, your phone keeps ringing, but you can't lose sight of making things happen for yourself. And I remember interviewing, and I asked you this question when I interviewed you. You're about to go into a fully commissioned sales role. You get in your car day one. Instead of driving to the branch, where are you driving to?
I was just thinking that.
Right?
I was just thinking
that. And so what he said was that, like, when he moved to MoveSnap and his phone's not refreshing, what's he doing? And there's a lot of value for our listeners in this episode, a ton. And you just tied it up perfectly, in my opinion, in terms of just going out there, getting business, not making excuses, and doing what's within your control. Yeah. Right? And make things happen instead of looking at what you just said, that person came from this or that. And everyone looks at someone that's successful and says, I want that. And it must have been easy for them, but it's not. It wasn't easy for you. Look at the path that we've just gone over in the last 40 minutes or so, the path that you've created for yourself to become incredibly successful and an icon in the industry, potentially GOAT status. You've got a long way to go there, but
long way.
Only longevity. I mean, results are there. So, but yeah.
Paul's feeling nice today. Not sure why.
It's the truth. It's the truth. But yeah, for me, I mean, I guess my last question. Do you have any more questions?
I'm done.
My last question was your opinion on the market. Any predictions for 2025? Not snow related, not tariffs related, just in the broker space or maybe mortgage space. You said it's the most Googled word, which is the truth with inflation. Any thoughts on 2025 from our industry perspective?
I think if you would have asked me this a couple months ago, I would have had a better prediction. But I think we're going to continue to see unpredictability. Not in terms of the market. Like, honestly, in terms of opportunity, it's there. How many mortgages are being done in Canada every year? Millions, right?
A lot of renewals this year.
Millions,
right?
A lot
of renewals over the next few years.
And so if you look at it from you got to look at it from an abundance mindset, right? I think any one of us, if you had 1% market share, man, that's crazy, right? So there's no lack of opportunity, but finding those opportunities is going to go back to having these conversations. And you know what? I always use the term, you're going to kiss a lot of frogs, right? Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But that's what you need to do to kind of mine those opportunities, because they're there. But I think, as we get into all the uncertainty right now, it's just going to require more work. Like, you can't substitute the more work. There's no there's no red pill, there's no blue pill, there's there's no magic.
That's right.
That'll make it happen.
That's
so I
right.
think it's just, if you're willing to stick with it, if you're willing to, get out there, add value to your clients, add value to your partners in the industry, you're going to do really well.
I couldn't agree more.
Kiss a lot of frogs and burn the boats.
Burn the boats.
A lot of good stuff. It's been a pleasure. Honestly, this was
Really
This was a
insightful.
really, really good episode, and a good one to return back after many months off. So thank you for coming on, Reuven,
Thank you.
and look forward to seeing you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure.
Thank you.